Chapter 1091. Not only had the vast numbers of abyssal creatures obstructed the vision of the human soldiers, they also obstructed the vision of the Ant Emperor down below. It still had no idea what had just happened right until the very instant that the six-clawed demon emperor vanished. This was simply incredible. The humans were capable of abducting the six-clawed demon emperor? Were they already this powerful? The Ant Emperor looked on in a flabbergasted manner, but it didn't have the courage to rush forward. It was a lot more powerful than the six-clawed demon emperor, but the six-clawed demon emperor possessed spatial abilities, which was why it had been sent out first. Furthermore, it had a vast number of brethren, so it was naturally assigned with the task of being the spearhead. The Ant Emperor was superior to the six-clawed demon emperor in terms of combat prowess, but if that bizarre situation had befallen it instead, it was not confident at all that it would have been able to resist. It couldn't afford to just charge recklessly onward. But then again, what were these humans trying to do? So what if they captured the six-clawed demon emperor? Even if the six-clawed demon emperor were to perish, its planar core would naturally carry its energy back to the abyssal plane. This was something that the humans were completely powerless to stop. Light flashed, and the huge mirror behind Tang Wulin dimmed once again. However, a massive figure that was appraising its surroundings in a bewildered manner had appeared within the mirror. It was none other than the six-clawed demon emperor. A faint smile appeared on Tang Wulin's face. Everything was going to hinge on this. 108 sounded like a large number, but if they were to destroy the abyssal emperors one by one, then it would be all that difficult to shake the foundation of the entire abyssal plane. With that in mind, he turned toward Douluo and gave him a thumbs up. This heartless Douluo truly was an extremely powerful being, as expected of Blood One to be able to capture an abyssal emperor in an instant. During the past few decades, the heartless Douluo was the one who had entered the abyssal plane the most number of times, and he had even assassinated abyssal emperors in the past, causing chaos and unrest within some of the abyssal levels to buy the Blood God Legion more time to rest and recuperate. This six-clawed demon emperor was clearly one of the weaker abyssal emperors, and capturing it proved to be a simple task for him. Wulin. A voice sounded beside Tang Wulin's ear, waking him up from his meditative state. He turned toward Douluo, who was standing beside him. Douluo said, "Come with me." He grabbed onto Tang Wulin's shoulder as he spoke, and a burst of fearlessly sharp aura abruptly erupted from his body. In the next instant, Tang Wulin felt as if he'd been teleported into a strange and abstract world. Everything around him was twisted, but at the same time, everything was extremely sharp, and he felt as if he would immediately be sliced into ribbons if he were to do anything careless here. He had experienced Yizenglin's sword intent in person before, and he had even witnessed Yizenglin attaining a sword soul during her match against Sima Jinkai, but none of that could even begin to compare with everything that he was seeing and feeling at this moment. This mystical sword intent seemed to have a life of its own, and it had connected all of the surrounding space while carrying him to freely traverse through this space. Was this what humans were capable of when they reached the peak of their powers? Tang Wulin's heart was filled with astonishment. Never did he think that Blood One would be capable of this. A faint smile appeared on Blood One's face. Wulin, what I need you to do next is to stab that abyssal creature with your golden dragon spear. We have to experiment and see if you can truly kill these powerful abyssal creatures. If your body is unable to handle the energy you're devouring, tell me right away. He had been brought here to kill an abyssal creature. As soon as this thought appeared in Tang Wulin's mind, the setting around him transformed, and he and Blood One arrived in another space without any premonition. There were only clouds and powerful gusts of energy swirling around the area, and there was also a gargantuan figure situated up ahead. It was none other than the six-clawed demon emperor. At this moment, the six-clawed demon emperor was looking very disoriented, and it clearly had no idea what was happening. As soon as it caught sight of Tang Wulin and Blood One, it immediately let loose a roar of fury while swinging its six arms through the air, causing the surrounding air to twist and warp violently. However, right at this moment, the cloud and mist in the surrounding area suddenly transformed into a series of chains that quickly bound its massive body, causing the energy it had just released to instantly dissipate. Blood One waved a hand through the air, and an antiquated longsword emerged out of thin air. The longsword split into two, then into four, and the four swords instantly appear around the six-clawed demon emperor's head, following which the twisted space was immediately stabilized. Go on, Wulin, Blood One instructed in a serious voice. Tang Wulin naturally wasn't going to hesitate. His golden dragon spear could devour the energy of abyssal creatures to enhance his powers, and even though many impurities were filtered out during this process, the energy that was transmitted to him was the purest neutral attribute energy. He had been itching to hunt down some abyssal creatures to elevate his own powers for quite a while now, so he certainly wasn't going to pass up this brilliant opportunity. He could clearly sense that this abyssal creature was more powerful than any of the other abyssal creatures that he had encountered before. His body flashed forward, and a pair of wings appeared on his back. He flapped his wings vigorously while unleashing his golden dragon takes flight. At the same time, his golden dragon spear appeared in his grasp, and he thrust it directly toward the six-clawed demon emperor. The six-clawed demon emperor had 16 pairs of compound eyes on its head, and those eyes were all filled with rage and indignation. It wasn't afraid of death. Following its death, its planar core would take its energy back to the abyssal plane, and as long as it still had the core, it had a chance to be resurrected. It had been the emperor of the 97th abyssal level for many years, and during that time, it had set up many trump cards for itself that would significantly increase his chances of successful resurrection and becoming the ruler of the abyssal level again. However, it didn't want to die under these inexplicable circumstances. The closer Tang Wulin drew to the six-clawed demon emperor, the more he was able to experience Blood One's incredible power. The four antiquated longswords hovering around the six-clawed demon emperor's head had completely immobilized it. Were those sword souls? It was incredible to think that a sword soul could be split into four segments. Furthermore, each segment seemed to possess power that was capable of parting heaven and earth. In the face of these four longswords, Tang Wulin felt extremely tiny and insignificant. The dual championship crown he had secured during the competition had instilled within him a lot of confidence, but only after witnessing the power being displayed by Blood One did he realize that he was still very far away from becoming a truly powerful being. All of these thoughts traveled through Tang Wulin's mind in a flash, and at this point, he had already reached the six-clawed demon emperor. He instantly thrust his golden dragon spear forward, yet when it struck the six-clawed demon emperor's chest, it was met by a strong sense of obstruction. What a powerful body. It was quite difficult even for his golden dragon spear to pierce into it. A surprised look appeared on Tang Wulin's face, and at the same time, he unleashed his golden dragon vibrational explosion. A buzzing sound rang out from the golden dragon spear, and the six-clawed demon emperor was still appraising him with a hint of disdain in its eyes just a moment ago, but in the next instant, its disdain was completely replaced by astonishment. Thump. The golden dragon spear pierced into the six-clawed demon emperor's body before faltering slightly. Immediately thereafter, the golden dragon spear took on a scorching white color, and white halos of light instantly enveloped Tang Wulin's spear-wielding arm. This white light then swept backward and quickly injected itself into Tang Wulin's body. Tang Wulin shuddered slightly, and in the next instant, a vast burst of energy abruptly surged into his body. This feeling was similar to when he had absorbed dragon clouds in the Dragon Valley for the very first time, and this energy was only even purer and more concentrated. The white light flowed into his body, and his dragon core began to beat violently while absorbing this pure life force energy in a greedy manner. As the life force energy surged into his body, his soul core also began to light up. He hurriedly activated his mysterious heaven method, controlling this influx of energy to flow into his two major energy cores. This wasn't the first time that he was facing abyssal creatures. Back then, he still didn't have either of his energy cores, and it was very easy for his body to be overfilled with energy. However, at this moment, both of his major energy cores were absorbing energy at an astonishing rate while radiating scintillating light. His soul core became even more glittering and translucent, and as the vast influx of energy flowed into it, a series of tiny facets began to appear on its rhomboid surface. With each facet that appeared, the soul core would become even brighter. Meanwhile, his dragon core was constantly beating like a heart, and every time it expanded, it would devour a vast amount of life force energy. This energy was converted by his dragon core before fusing into his bloodline energy, then pumped to every corner of his body. Tang Wulin felt as if he were expanding like a balloon as more and more energy continued to flow into his body. What? Blood One was constantly standing beside him and observing the changes taking place to the six-clawed demon emperor, and he could see that a hint of astonishment first appeared on its face, quickly followed by an expression of horror. He could clearly sense that this human was constantly sapping away at its abyssal energy. How was this possible? Could it be that this was the human who was capable of devouring abyssal energy that the most powerful abyssal emperors had been referring to? Chapter 1092. Was a human really capable of doing this? This was downright incredible. An expression of shock and horror appeared on its face. If things were to continue like this, it was going to die. It couldn't allow this to go on. It had to break through the restrictions here and return to the abyssal plane. Only then would it have a chance at resurrection. With that in mind, the six-clawed demon emperor's body began to expand and contract violently while a faint light seemed to have lit up within its body. This was a strange purple light, and as soon as this light appeared, its enormous body immediately began to collapse in on itself. Blood One's expression changed slightly as he waved his right hand through the air, and another antiquated longsword shot forth like lightning before instantly pinning the six-clawed demon emperor's body, significantly slowing down the rate at which it was collapsing in on itself. Time is of the essence. Wulin, this thing's trying to self-detonate. Blood One had the most experience when it came to dealing with these Abyssal Emperors, so he was well aware of their abilities. If an Abyssal Emperor were to perish, their Abyssal energy would quickly escape toward the Abyssal plane. This Abyssal energy was able to pass through anything, and even Tang Wulin domain was unable to capture it. If the energy were allowed to escape, then after a while, the Abyssal Emperor that was slain would be resurrected, and their operation would end in failure. Tang Wulin nodded firmly in response. He had also sensed that something was amiss. Even though the rate at which his golden dragon spear was devouring the six-clawed demon emperor's energy was speeding up, the energy within its body was also quickly becoming more violent, and it seemed as if it were getting closer to breaking free. He could sense that there seemed to be some kind of special entity within the six-clawed demon emperor's body, and it was currently absorbing the six-clawed demon emperor's energy with all its might. Senior Blood One, it seems to be trying to open a spatial passageway. You. All of a sudden, Tang Wulin's voice abruptly trailed off, and his glabella shuddered as a strange feeling instantly spread through his entire body. Blood One's expression changed slightly as he waved his right hand through the air, and the four longswords around the six-clawed demon emperor's head instantly began to glow with scintillating light while slicing through space. However, powerful spatial fluctuations abruptly erupted from within the six-clawed demon emperor's body, and it was as if its entire being were collapsing inward. Hee, you puny humans think that you can kill the almighty six-clawed demon emperor with your pitiful little tricks. No matter how powerful you are individually, how can you hope to contend with an entire place? The Abyssal plane possesses power that is infinitely approaching godly power. That is the basis of the Abyssal plane. My planar seed will take me back to the Abyssal plane, and it won't be long before I return. Planar seed. Even though Blood One had been battling abyssal creatures for many years, this was the first time that he had been made aware of this existence known as the planar seed. Furthermore, he could clearly sense that his spatial locking and Tang Wanyun's domain was slowly becoming unable to control the six-clawed demon emperor. Blood One's heart sank, and he realized that he had still been too naive. It would take more than just devouring their energy to truly destroy the 108 abyssal emperors. This was a very low-ranking emperor, yet they were still unable to kill it. One could only imagine that the more powerful emperors would undoubtedly be even more difficult to control. Furthermore, the seal within the main abyssal passageway had clearly somehow been breached, making the situation very grim and difficult for them to deal with. Just as Blood One's brows were tightly furrowed in contemplation, a strange turn of events abruptly unfolded. A total of 6 soul rings suddenly emerged from beneath Tang Wulin's feet, consisting of 4 blacks, 1 green, and 1 orange. The 5th greenish-golden soul ring suddenly lit up, immediately following which a beam of green light erupted from Tang Wulin's glabella like lightning. To Blood One's surprise, a green symbol that resembled a tiny sapling had appeared on Tang Wulin's head, and that symbol was where this green light was originating from. The green light struck the six-clawed demon emperor's chest, and a peculiar scene ensued. A hole appeared on the six-clawed demon emperor's chest, as if the flesh there had been melted away, and immediately thereafter, the green light took on a substantial form, transforming into a branch that was riddled with green leaves before plunging itself into the six-clawed demon emperor's chest. The six-clawed demon emperor's deranged cackling immediately cut off. What the hell is this? Arg. Deafening howls of anguish abruptly rang out, causing the entire space within the domain to twist and warp violently. However, there was still green light that was clearly shimmering from its chest. At this moment, Tang Wulin felt as if the seed of life that was contained deep within his glabella was transmitting emotions of joy and elation to him. It was the exact same feeling that he experienced when tasting his mother's cooking as a small child. The energy being devoured by the golden dragon spear clearly subsided a little, but the extremely rich life force energy being released by the seed of life filled every corner of his entire body. He could clearly sense that every single cell within his entire body was in a state of joyous celebration. In the face of this enormous influx of life force energy, a layer of greenish golden light that was filled with vitality surfaced all over his body, and he was struck by an indescribable sense of comfort. Both his physical and spiritual exhaustions were wiped away in an instant, and what was even more of a pleasant surprise to Tang Wulin was that in that instant, he was able to clearly sense all of the elemental particles around him. Was this the feeling of attaining spirit domain realm spiritual power? The six-clawed demon emperor was letting loose deranged roars of fury and struggling with all its might, but the vine that had emerged from Tang Wulin's forehead, which was only as thin as a finger, had taken root firmly on the six-clawed demon emperor's chest, turning it into a bright green color. Had the tide suddenly turned? Even Blood One was completely rooted to the spot. He was already aware that Tang Wulin had an unknown source of enormous life force energy within his body. This life force energy had appeared back when he was materializing his soul core, and it had benefited the entire legion immensely. At this moment, the life force energy had appeared once again, and it seemed to have controlled the six-clawed demon emperor's planar seed. What was going on? Even with Blood One's vast wealth of experience, he still couldn't ascertain exactly what was happening, but one thing appeared to be certain. The six-clawed demon emperor had been dealt a lethal blow. A powerful heartbeat rang out from Tang Wulin's dragon core, and he felt as if his blood essence power had never been this abundant before. With the nourishment his body received from the rich life force energy, he wasn't worried in the slightest that his body wouldn't be able to handle this influx of blood essence power. His dragon core was clearly expanding little by little, and the number of facets on his soul core was also quickly increasing. This was undoubtedly an indication that his soul core was undergoing evolution. The 2 major energy cores were absorbing the energy from the six-clawed demon emperor in a greedy manner, but the sea of life within his glabella was devouring the most energy. All of a sudden, the six-clawed demon emperor shuddered violently before slumping in a limp and lifeless manner. The branch that had emerged from Tang Wulin's forehead instantly shot back, and at the tip of the branch, there was a dark purple ovular crystal. The crystal was flashing with light that was fluctuating in brightness, and the branch from the seed of life had taken root upon it. There seemed to be a series of roots that had pierced into the crystal, and layers of green light were quickly surging toward Tang Wulin's forehead along the branch. The vast life force energy was then devoured in its entirety by the seed of life. 6 projections appeared around Tang Wulin, and they were none other than the 6 plant system great beasts. Each of them had a layer of greenish golden light around their body, and they all wore ecstatic expressions. It was quite clear that the rich life force energy had benefited them immensely as well. The golden dragon spear continued to devour the six-clawed demon emperor's remaining energy, and Tang Wulin turned to the beautiful silk tulip as he asked, "What's going on here? What's that purple crystal?" The beautiful silk tulip burst into elated laughter. "I must say, you've been extremely lucky, master. We had thought that staying around the sea of life and being influenced by its aura would already be the best form of nourishment for us, but we didn't think that you would be able to activate the sea of life and provide it with such pure life force energy. As a result of this influx of energy, the seed of life is truly beginning to germinate." Chapter 1093. Tang Wulin hurriedly said, "Hold on, can you explain in greater detail? I still don't understand." Blood One was also very surprised to see so many beings with such powerful auras suddenly appear around Tang Wulin. These beings were all radiating rich life force energy, and it was quite clear that they shared a very close connection with Tang Wulin. The beautiful silk tulip replied, "All of our knowledge on this matter was bestowed upon us by the seed of life. The seed of life itself is actually the patriarch of all life in our world, so in a sense, it is a representative of nature. The seed of life has constantly been residing within the ancient golden tree in a certain form, but due to excessive exploitation of the continent's resources by you humans, the number of plants and soul beasts in this world quickly dwindled, resulting in a loss of a vast amount of life force energy. After many years, the seed of life suddenly awakened for some reason, and it attained a certain level of sentience. It seemed to have sensed something, and that was why it had urged the golden tree to bestow its power upon you." The beautiful silk tulip's voice had already become quite grim at this point, and he continued, "Perhaps this is because you humans have damaged the continent to such an extent that the entire continent is on the verge of extinction. As such, the seed of life chose you to be the son of nature in the hope that you can restore the continent's life force energy and vitality so that it wouldn't be destroyed in the end." Both Tang Wulin and Blood One were quite alarmed to hear this. Was environmental damage already this severe? The beautiful silk tulip continued, "The seed of life represents the life force energy of the entire continent, so in order to truly awaken it and allow it to germinate, the amount of energy required is naturally extremely enormous. This is definitely not something that you can achieve on your own. So when the ancient golden tree perished, it transferred the seed of life into your body. The seed of life hopes that through following you, it will find a sufficiently enormous supply of life force energy to activate itself. We can evolve by being influenced by the aura of the seed of life, but at the same time, our life force energy can also be reciprocated to the seed of life life in order to support its vitality. To plants like us, this is the greatest honor, as well as a responsibility that we must carry on our shoulders. However, the seed of life is currently in a very feeble state as the life force energy in the entire world is decreasing. Hence, we didn't know when the seed of life would truly be able to awaken. That was until you attained your soul core and released such an enormous burst of life force energy that you were able to awaken the seed of life and allow it to germinate. However, we all knew that the seed of life was forcing itself to do this. If it didn't draw upon your power to forcibly germinate, then the next opportunity for it to awaken most likely wouldn't arrive for countless years. Due to the fact that it had forced itself to germinate, the seed of life was sorely lacking in energy, so it could only slowly search for life force energy to replenish itself. Hence, following the conclusion of your military service here, I was going to suggest for you to visit a forest where there would be an enormous wealth of life force energy for the seed of life to draw upon. But much to my surprise, you've managed to find the energy that the seed of life craves the most in such a short time. That purple crystal is a manifestation of the purest life force energy. This is life force energy of the planar level, and it's also what the seed of life needs the most. Furthermore, this energy doesn't belong to our plane, which means that the seed of life has replenished itself using life force energy from an alternate plane. This is the most brilliant situation that it could hope for. That planar energy crystal is at least enough to stabilize the seed of life in its current state so that its condition wouldn't continue to deteriorate. If possible, please find as many of these life forms as possible and devour their energy. This would significantly increase the chances of allowing the seed of life to completely awaken, as the beings who are closest to the seed of life will all be reciprocated by the seed of life, and when its life force energy reaches a certain level, the seed will be able to completely awaken, bringing even more life force energy to this world. As a result, more life will be created in this world to replenish the life force energy that has been lost. Both Tang Wulin and Blood One were quite astonished after hearing the beautiful silk tulip's explanation. Planar energy? Did this mean that the six-clawed demon emperor's body contained the life force energy of the abyssal plane? It was most likely trying to escape using this energy not long ago, but the seed of life had latched onto that energy. If Tang Wulin's golden dragon spear still went enough to destroy these abyssal emperors, then with the addition of his seed of life, he would definitely be able to truly put an end to these abyssal emperors. What made Blood One even more elated was that through killing these abyssal emperors, they would be able to transfer the life force energy of the abyssal plane into the Douluo continent, which was most definitely fantastic news. This was most likely what the abyssal plane had also been trying to do all along. They wanted to devour the Douluo continent in order to replenish their abyssal plane in order to give rise to their own divine realm. The light that was shimmering from the golden dragon spear gradually subsided, and at this point, the six-clawed demon emperor's massive body had already completely shriveled up like a gigantic raisin. Most of its life force energy had been devoured by the seed of life, along with its planar seed, but a small portion of the energy had also fused into Tang Wulin's body. That, in addition to the life force energy reciprocation that Tang Wulin had received from the seed of life, made him feel more powerful than ever. He could sense that he wouldn't be able to maintain this state for very long, but this feeling of being filled with unprecedented power was still extremely wonderful and exhilarating. Senior Blood One, there are more abyssal creatures like this one, right? A faint smile appeared on Blood One's face. Of course there are, and there are quite a few of them, as well. If the seed of life really did just devour a planar core, then the abyssal realm is going to be in some trouble. Rumble, rumble. The earth collapsed, and magma erupted forth in all directions. The 97th abyssal level had completely collapsed, and during this process, countless abyssal creatures on the 97th level were reduced to dust. Even the entire abyssal plane was quaking violently in the face of this disaster. The destruction of the planar seed meant that the abyssal level that the planar seed belonged to had lost its origin. All of the abyssal energy on that level began to dissipate, spreading toward the other abyssal levels. All of the four-clawed bats, six-clawed bats, and other abyssal creatures on that level quickly disintegrated into abyssal energy that surged away in all directions while the abyssal level itself quickly crumbled. What's happening? What's happening to the 97th level? A furious roar erupted throughout the entire abyss. A series of terrifying colossal figures emerged deep within the abyssal plane, and their eyes were all filled with astonishment and rage. The 97th level collapsed. How is this possible? The abyssal emperors on the levels closest to the 97th level had a clearer sense of what was happening than anyone else. The collapse of a level was a disaster to the entire abyssal plane, and the neighboring few levels were also heavily impacted with countless abyssal creatures perishing in the wake of this catastrophe. Even though their energy could still be recycled and contribute to the birth of new abyssal creatures, this was something that the abyssal plane had never seen before. Something happened to the six-clawed demon emperor. He seems to have died in the human world, and even his planar seed was destroyed. What? Since when did humans attain the power to destroy planar seeds? This is impossible. The planar seeds contain the purest energy of our plane. Only by drawing upon the essential power of their plane would they be able to. Chapter 1094. Looks like we'll have to change our plan and perhaps even speed up its implementation. Have the humans already become this powerful? Through the Abyssal Passageway, they can actively access our world. If they already possess the power to destroy our planar seeds, then our entire plane will be in grave danger. That's enough. A voice that was cold to the extreme suddenly rang out, and the frenzied conversing voices instantly died down. Deep within the darkness, a massive vertical pupil slowly lit up. This was a crimson eye, and if one were to look closely, they discovered that this massive eye was comprised of countless tiny red eyes. If a person suffering from trypophobia were to witness this harrowing scene, they would most likely be instantly racked with violent, uncontrollable spasms. As soon as this eye opened, the entire abyssal plane immediately fell silent. The collapsed 97th level had disappeared, and it was no longer able to affect its neighboring abyssal levels. Holy Lord! All of the emperors that were gathered at the deepest point within the abyss lowered their proud heads in unison and bowed respectfully toward this crimson eye. A being who is capable of destroying us has appeared in the human race. We must seize the initiative first before they can pose any threat to us. Tear open the passageway at all costs and completely destroy the human race. For those who are willing to sacrifice themselves to contribute to our plight, I guarantee that you won't encounter any obstruction in your future resurrections, and your planar level will be raised by 3. In order to completely open up the passageway, 10 emperors will need to be sacrificed. The cold voice reverberated throughout the deepest part of the abyss and was met by a fearful uneasy silence. That's right. It wasn't the case that the abyssal plane couldn't break that seal. It was just that doing so required a massive sacrifice. If an abyssal emperor were to perish, then there was a very good chance that their position as emperor would be taken by one of their brethren. This was something that no abyssal emperor wanted to see. The Holy Lord had already been hibernating for countless years, and as soon as it reappeared, all of the other abyssal emperors immediately pledged their subordination. Furthermore, they knew that with a guarantee from the Holy Lord, they would definitely be able to successfully resurrect themselves and reclaim their emperor status. This Holy Lord had never gone back on his word before. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for the abyss. A burly monster with 5 arms slowly strode forward before standing in front of the Holy Lord in a respectful manner. Immediately thereafter, one abyssal emperor strode forward after another, volunteering themselves as tributes. They were definitely going to be dormant for a long time, but if they were guaranteed successful resurrection and their respective abyssal levels would be raised by 3, then that was naturally a worthwhile trade-off. Very good. It's time to destroy the human race and devour that world to expand our abyssal plane. The Holy Lord's sinister voice rang out throughout the entire abyss, and that massive crimson eye seemed to be able to peer into every single corner of the abyss. The abyssal creatures immediately entered a riotous frenzy. A sudden sense of intense fear welled up in the Ant Emperor's heart, striking it with a very unsettling feeling. Had the six-clawed demon emperor really been killed? Why hadn't its planar seed managed to escape back into the abyss? Could it be that the humans already possessed the power to destroy planar seeds? How was that possible? Right at this moment, all of the countless four-clawed bats and six-clawed bats in the air above suddenly began to disintegrate. Their bodies exploded violently, even without being afflicted by any human attacks. They transformed into one ball of abyssal energy after another that surged into the abyssal vortex in a frenzy. The abyssal vortex did indeed expand as a result, but at what cost? An astonishing thought suddenly occurred to the Ant Emperor. Could it be that the six-clawed demon emperor's planar level had collapsed? Had its planar seed really been destroyed by the humans? Right at this moment, a massive sense of peril descended upon the Ant Emperor, and it instantly rushed toward the abyssal vortex as quickly as it could without any hesitation. It had to return to the abyssal plane as quickly as possible. It was indeed far more powerful than the six-clawed demon emperor, but if the humans could kill the six-clawed demon emperor, then it was most definitely susceptible to suffering the same fate. As such, it immediately attempted to flee the scene. However, right at this moment, it suddenly discovered that its own emotions seemed to have congealed, and it was as if it had lost the ability to think. A tragically beautiful sword projection silently appeared beneath it before sweeping toward its body. However, the Ant Emperor was an abyssal emperor that was ranked near the top of the lower 36 levels, after all, so it was certainly no slouch. It immediately reacted and sprang into action as it curled itself up into a ball while extremely thick and heavy scales appeared all over its body. At the same time, a layer of strange black liquid liquid began to spread outward from every single part of its body. This was formic acid that was capable of eroding everything, and any life form that came into contact with it would quickly be reduced to a puddle of blood. The way through which the ant emperor cultivated was to use its formic acid to destroy its enemies and even its own brethren, then devour the puddles of blood and nutrients that remained of its prey's bodies. This was its latent ability. However, a burst of cold intent suddenly erupted from the longsword, and even though it was clearly surrounded by so many of its own brethren in that instant, the ant emperor felt as if it were completely alone. It was as if everything was extremely far away from it. Was this a spiritual domain? This is bad. One of the most powerful beings of the human race is here. No wonder six-clawed demon emperor perished. Compared to the six-clawed demon emperor, the ant emperor was much more decisive, especially after sensing the six-clawed demon emperor's complete death. The ant emperor immediately activated the planar seed within its own body, trying to self-detonate so it could return to the abyssal plane. Boom. The antiquated longsword crashed into its body, shattering large patches of its scales, but it had still managed to initiate its self-detonation sequence. However, right at this moment, a speck of green light suddenly flashed forward from behind the massive sword projection before silently adhering itself to the ant emperor's chest. The abyssal energy that was just about to explode within the ant emperor's body suddenly congealed, as if it had encountered some kind of natural predator, and immediately thereafter, the planar seed began to tremble violently. Right at this moment, a streak of golden light flashed through the air like a bolt of lightning before piercing into a spot on its body, where its scales had just been destroyed. The ant emperor was then immediately struck by the feeling of its own life force energy rapidly seeping away. In the air above, what appeared to be bright moonlight descended before enshrouding the ant emperor's entire body during its brief moment of immobilization, and the ant emperor abruptly vanished. Boom, 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 boom. 7 swords crashed down in succession, and all of them struck the ant emperor's head, which was the hardest part of its body. Under the devastating blows being dealt upon it by the heartless swords, the ant emperor was unable to formulate any coherent thoughts. If Blood One had wanted to kill him, then those 7 swords would have already been enough. However, that was not his intention. Instead, he was trying to buy time for Tang Wulin and his seed of life. The ant emperor also possessed a planar seed, but this one was far more powerful than the planar seed within the six-clawed demon emperor's body. When the branch of Tang Wulin's seed of life pierced into the ant emperor's body, he was immediately faced with vehement resistance from the planar seed. It thrashed from one side to another with all its might, attempting to evade the obstruction of the seed of life, only to be cut off over and over again. At the same time, Tang Wulin was absorbing the ant emperor's life force as quickly as he could. The weaker the ant emperor's life force energy became, the less energy the planar seed had to draw upon. The green symbol on Tang Wulin's forehead looked as if it were about to break out of his body, and it was shimmering with dazzling light. The branch of the seed of life had clearly also become thicker than before. Powerful energy fluctuations revolved around Tang Wulin's body, and his golden dragon spear was also gently vibrating. The amount of energy being devoured was far too enormous, and it was causing his dragon core to beat at an extremely fast rate. At the same time, even his heart rate was speeding up. Both of his major energy cores were approaching the limits of their energy tolerance capacity. Hurry up, seed of life. If it weren't for the fact that the seed of life was devouring the majority of the ant emperor's energy, at his current power level, Tang Wulin's body would have already been unable to handle such an enormous influx of energy. Even so, he had only managed to last this long due to his extremely powerful physical constitution. As an analogy, his body was like a small lake, and it was trying to devour a massive turbulent river. He could hold on for a short time, but after a while, the small lake was naturally going to overflow and be split apart by the excessive influx of water. However, with his past experiences in breaking his golden dragon king seals, both Tang Wulin's pain threshold and the tolerance capacity of his meridians far exceeded that of the average person. Blood One was attacking the ant emperor over and over again, scattering its thoughts so that it wouldn't be able to attack Tang Wulin, and at the same time, Tang Wulin was absorbing its energy with all his might. Thump. All of a sudden, it was as if something had been successfully punctured within the ant emperor's body. The energy flowing into Tang Wulin's body from the golden dragon spear suddenly faltered slightly, and in the next instant, a surge of warmth suddenly flowed throughout his entire body. His soul core trembled slightly, and a burst of dazzling light began to radiate from its surface. He had made another breakthrough. This was already his 3rd breakthrough of the day, taking him to rank 69 in soul power. However, making too many breakthroughs in a short time wasn't a good thing. Even if he had progressed up 3 ranks in rapid succession, the enormous influx of energy was simply lingering within his body and hadn't actually been fully absorbed. Chapter 1095. The seed of life finally took root on the planar seed, and the entire branch immediately turned as green as jade. Powerful life force energy was immediately reciprocated into Tang Wulin's body from the seed of life, alleviating the severe throbbing pain in his meridians. It was undoubtedly the case that this type of nourishment was going to be immensely beneficial to improving his physical constitution, and it could also resolve the issues brought to him by the extremely fast breakthroughs that he had just made. Simply put, this nourishment was allowing the small lake that was his body to expand while also fortifying his physical constitution. It was not an exaggeration to say that in this brief period of time alone, Tang Wulin's physical constitution had improved by a greater degree than if he were to cultivate normally for an entire year. This was definitely fantastic news for him, especially considering the golden dragon king seals that he would have to break in the future. With his current physical constitution, it was extremely difficult just to make slight improvements, let alone a drastic improvement like this. The opportunity that had been presented to him today was something that had been completely unimaginable to him in the past. The ant emperor finally understood how the six-clawed demon emperor had been destroyed. After its planar seed was latched onto by the seed of life, the former's struggles became feebler and feebler, and the essential power of the abyssal level that it belonged to was being devoured by the seed of life in a frenzy. Tang Wulin could even sense that a series of intriguing changes had taken place within the seed of life. The branch extending from it had become even thicker, and what was even more remarkable was that the rich life force energy within the seed was beginning to compress inward to an extreme degree, as if this energy were being stored away. Now that the seed of life had latched onto the planar seed, the vast majority of energy was flowing toward it, and Tang Wulin was able to take advantage of this opportunity to sense the nourishment of the life force energy while activating his mysterious heaven method to adjust his own bodily condition. He definitely wouldn't receive many opportunities in his life to make such drastic improvements. Furthermore, he could vaguely sense that his understanding of life and destruction had deepened slightly. In the past, he had sensed both of these types of energy on the demonic island, and the life force energy currently being transmitted to him through the seed of life was far richer and purer than even the life force energy on the demonic island. After all, this was the power of an entire plane. He couldn't directly use this power, but don't forget that he was the son of nature. As the son of nature, the life force energy was definitely going to enhance his body as much as it could, and Tang Wulin was the one who had brought about this opportunity to devour the planar seed in the first place, so he certainly deserved to be reciprocated. Blood One withdrew his heartless sword, and he was feeling extremely elated. He hadn't had a chance to inspect the condition within the abyssal passageway yet, but the fact that only 2 abyssal emperors had appeared so far indicated that the passageway still wasn't very easily accessible. By destroying 2 abyssal levels, they had dealt an unprecedentedly heavy blow to the entire abyssal plane. Furthermore, they were also benefiting from destroying their enemies. If they could destroy more abyssal emperors in this fashion in the future, then the abyssal plane would cease to pose a substantial threat. Not only was the Douluo continent seed of life being nourished, this was also accelerating Tang Wulin's growth, so it was truly a win-win situation. Just as Blood One was feeling very pleased with himself, the entire domain unleashed by Jiang Wanyun suddenly trembled violently. An urgent voice immediately rang out. "I need your help, old man cow. The abyssal passageway is about to completely split open." Blood One's heart jolted with shock upon hearing this. When he had ventured deep into the abyssal passageway not long before, he had actually already seen that the seal on the abyssal creature hadn't been completely broken. It was most likely the case that the abyssal creatures had somehow opened up a small passageway using some unknown methods. So many powerful beings had combined their powers over 6,000 years ago to set up this planar seal. It was not something that could be broken so easily. Despite the thoughts that were flashing through Blood One's mind, he still immediately released his domain. Tang Wulin had already completely gained the upper hand over the ant emperor, so he no longer required any assistance. At this moment, a string of loud shattering sounds were constantly ringing out from within the abyssal passageway. Terrifying energy fluctuations were erupting outward in a frenzy, pulverizing all of the abyssal creatures that had just emerged and reducing them to streams of abyssal energy that returned to the abyssal plane. The vortex that was situated deep within the passageway suddenly sank downward, and large cracks were beginning to appear on the seal that had stood in a resolute manner for several millennia. Extremely viscous abyssal energy was beginning to seep out of those cracks. What's going on? Blood One's expression changed drastically, and he could immediately sense that something was very wrong. Jiang Wanyun wore a dark expression on his face. "We're in trouble. Did you succeed back there?" "We did." The six-clawed demon emperor is dead, and its abyssal level has probably been destroyed as well. Could it be that the abyssal emperors have sensed that something's wrong, and they're rushing out of the abyssal passage at all costs to engage us in a final battle? Count Dou had initially thought that once a few abyssal emperors were slain, thereby causing their abyssal levels to collapse, the abyssal plane would cut off the abyssal passageway and completely sever its connection with the Douluo continent. As such, the sword that had been hanging over the Douluo continent's head for over 6,000 years would be removed. However, what he didn't expect was that following the death of the abyssal emperor, the abyssal plane was using some kind of method to forcibly break through the seal on the passageway. They were clearly trying to instigate an all-out war. The six-clawed demon emperor and the Ant emperor were only two abyssal emperors, but if more abyssal emperors were to emerge, then they would be in deep trouble. Wanyun, we can't allow them to break the seal. We have to join forces and activate the blood god array to fortify the seal, Cao Dou immediately said. However, Jiang Wanyun was rather hesitant. But if we do that, you and all of the other blood gods won't be able to participate in the rest of this battle. Now that cracks have already appeared on the seal, more and more abyssal creatures will continue to rush out of it. If more abyssal emperors emerge and none of the blood gods are around to oppose them, our defensive line may not be able to stop them. Cao Dou insisted, we have no choice. We can't allow the abyssal passageway seal to be broken. If that happens, all of the abyssal emperors will be able to descend upon our world at once, and that would be a truly catastrophic disaster. So we have to activate the blood god array. You assist Wulin and seal up the cracks while we fortify the seal. We have to hold back these abyssal creatures at all costs. At a time like this, we can only place our trust in the younger generation. After his voice trailed off, Cao Dou's body swayed, and he immediately rose up into the air before yelling, all members of the blood god battalion, prepare the blood god array. Wulin's position will be taken by the former blood nine. He raised his right hand as he spoke, and the antiquated longsword that had appeared before emerged in his grasp. But on this occasion, there was only one sword. The longsword was around 1.5 meters in length, and its blade was shimmering with cold light that resembled rippling water. 9 soul rings rose up from beneath him before revolving around his body, consisting of 6 blacks and 3 reds. This was the most powerful being in the Tang sect, the master of the Tang sect in the Douluo palace. As the full extent of his aura erupted from his body, even the sky above had begun to dim, and it was as if there were countless sharp streaks of energy that were about to descend from the heavens. Cao Dou raised a hand and pointed his heartless sword diagonally up toward the heavens. The sky immediately lit up, and a ray of light shone down from above. As the ray of light descended, it transformed into a gigantic golden sword that fell from the sky, instantly piercing into the depths of the abyss while radiating an aura of peerless sharpness. The powerful abyssal passageway energy that had just surged out of the cracks immediately recoiled in the face of the huge golden sword, thereby completely clearing out the passageway. Jiang Wanyun also immediately sprang into action. He knew that Cao Dou was right. If they didn't fortify the seal and simply allowed it to break, then a true nightmare would dawn upon them. He waved both of his hands through the air, and 9 streaks of golden light flew toward the cave wall around the exit of the abyssal passageway. When those 9 streaks of light descended upon the cave wall, they were revealed to be 9 shield-shaped badges. Each of the badges had an image on it, depicting the first owner of the badge. Chapter 1096. In the past, it was these 9 powerful beings who had joined forces to seal the abyssal plane, and following the passage of over 6,000 years, these badges had finally reappeared. The 9 badges vanished into the cave wall, and the entire abyssal passageway immediately began to tremor violently. A vast expanse of golden patterns erupted with the 9 badges as their origin points before extending into the depths of the abyssal passageway. A loud rumbling sound could still be heard ringing out from within the abyssal passageway, but it had become slightly more stable. 9 circular platforms slowly emerged from the cave wall. Blood One's body swayed, and he arrived first onto the platform that was situated in the 12 o'clock position before taking a seat upon it. The other 8 blood gods also descended onto each of the platforms before sitting down with their legs crossed. I offer my blood as tribute. A plume of blood mist erupted from Blood One's body. The blood had been forced out of his pores, and as the blood mist permeated through his ears, his complexion instantly paled slightly. I offer my blood as tribute. The other 8 blood gods repeated the same incantation before large plumes of blood mist also erupted from their bodies. After the blood mist was released, it instantly descended and fused directly into the platforms that they were seated on without even a single drop being wasted. Golden rings instantly lit up within the entire cave, illuminating everything in the deepest part of the abyss so that it was clear as day. Looking down from above, one could see a vast expanse of black mist swelling within the depths of the passageway, and a string of loud shattering noises were ringing out in quick succession. Dark purple light was flashing deep within the abyss and attempting to spread upward. However, with the injections of blood from the 9 blood gods into their respective platforms, the array immediately became more stable, and it was beginning to force the purple light downward. Innate spirits, heed my call. The soul of Douluo will forge a foundation. Blood One's vehement voice rang out in the air above the abyssal passageway. The round platform beneath him was already glowing as bright as the sun, and a series of golden halos revolved around his body before rising upward. Blood 2 then immediately yelled, Spirit of water, heed my call. The soul of Douluo will forge a foundation. Blood 3 yelled, Spirit of fire, heed my call. The soul of Douluo will forge a foundation. Blood 4 yelled, Spirit of earth, heed my call. The soul of Douluo will forge a foundation. Blood 5 yelled, Spirit of wind, heed my call. The soul of Douluo will forge a foundation. Blood 6 yelled, Spirit of light, heed my call. The soul of Douluo will forge a foundation. Blood 7 yelled, Spirit of darkness, heed my call. The soul of Douluo will forge a foundation. Blood 8 yelled, Spirit of time, heed my call. The soul of Douluo will forge a foundation. Blood 9 yelled, Spirit of space, heed my call. The soul of Douluo will forge a foundation. As the 9 incantations rang out, the 9 round platforms all began to radiate lights of different colors. Water was blue, fire was red, wind was azure, earth was yellow, light was white, darkness was black, and the most peculiar ones of all were time and space. Time was of a golden color that was constantly transitioning between darker and lighter shades, while space was of an ethereal rippling silver color. With the blood of the 9 blood gods as a tribute, the 9 innate spirits of nature completely activated the array down below. This blood god array was created by those aforementioned 9 powerful beings, and the seal hadn't just been forged by the powers of those 9 beings. Instead, their powers were used as a catalyst in conjunction with some extremely complex symbols to gather the 9 types of essential spiritual energy on the Douluo continent to create the seal. They had drawn upon the power of laws of the Douluo continent, which was resistant to alternate planes, and this was why the seal had managed to keep the abyssal plane at bay for such a long time. Right as the seal was about to be completed, the powerful beings of the abyssal plane at the time resisted with all their might, and they were able to create a few small gaps around the seal that would allow some normal abyssal creatures to pass through without being killed by the seal. This was how the 36 branch passageways came into existence. Otherwise, if the seal had been perfectly implemented, then the abyssal plane would have already been completely cut off from this world. One of the most important duties of the blood gods was to replicate the 9 powerful beings of the past, drawing the 9 types of innate spiritual energy toward the seal to activate it to its most powerful degree during times of grave peril. The 9 blood gods weren't as powerful as those 9 powerful beings of the past, but it was important to remember that over 6,000 years ago, battle armor was still a very new invention. Suits of battle armor were now a lot more powerful than they were in the past, and with their assistance, even if not all of the 9 blood gods could attain powers on par with Limit Douluo, Blood One was even more powerful than any of those 9 seniors. Just his powers alone were enough to complete a third of the array's activation, and everyone else had also had their powers elevated to at least the hyper Douluo level by their battle armor. Changes were gradually beginning to take place within the dark clouds up above. Lights of many different colors began to appear, and for a Limit Douluo like Jiang Wanyun, his spiritual power allowed him to clearly sense that the rich particles of all different elements were quickly converging toward the array down below. Those innate spirits were all wars of the Douluo continent, and they were undoubtedly also able to sense the invasion from the alternative plane. Under the guidance of the array, they were choosing to protect their own plane without any reservation. A massive 9-colored light barrier appeared above the abyssal passageway, and the light was being injected into each of the bodies of each of the 9 blood gods, then being transmitted into the array through their bodies. The golden patterns on the array instantly brightened significantly, and the cracks down below quickly became unable to expand any further. In fact, it appeared as if they were about to be sealed again. On the other side, one abyssal emperor self-detonated after another, releasing explosions of the purest abyssal energy. This energy was surging into the passageway in a frenzy like a series of monsters that were tearing at the cracks. This was no longer just a battle between 2 races, it had become a clash between 2 planes. A loud piercing screech was constantly suddenly ringing out from deep within the Abyssal Passageway, and Tang Wulin raised a hand as he commanded. Prepare the protective barriers and shockwaves. Everyone, we have entered a state of red alert. The 9 blood gods had stabilized the seal, but the Abyssal plane was attempting to break open the seal at all costs. So the Blood God Legion was most definitely going to be facing a massive abyssal tide of unprecedented proportions. Many of the powerful beings of the Blood God Legion had already gathered behind Tang Wulin. Even if the 9 blood gods weren't taken into account, the Blood God Legion still had more than 10 titled Douluo among their ranks, and all of them were wearing suits of 3-word battle armor as they silently awaited the commencement of this all-out battle. Meanwhile, deep within the abyssal plane, we're sacrificing too much. Holy Lord, cracks have already opened up on the seal, but the humans have somehow been able to fortify it, so it'll be very difficult for us to break through. Sacrificing 10 emperors most likely won't be enough. Should we? Shut up. If 10 isn't enough, then sacrifice 15. If that still isn't enough, then sacrifice 20. We can't afford to give the humans a chance to regroup and recuperate. I can already sense that among the laws of the human world, a type of power that is capable of completely destroying our entire plane is being born. This is very likely going to be our only chance, and we can't afford to allow that power to grow and develop in the human world. Yes, Holy Lord. Rumble, rumble. Right at this moment, the abyssal plane began to quake violently once again. All of a sudden, the laws of the plane were thrown into complete disarray while countless weaker abyssal creatures on a certain abyssal level quickly disintegrated. The massive crimson eye flashed, and a vicious aura instantly erupted forth, causing the chaos within the abyssal plane to subside a little. The Ant Emperor's planar seed is gone as well. Do you understand why I'm insisting on waging all-out war with the humans now? If we don't do everything in our power to conquer their plane, then it's very likely going to be the humans who completely destroy our plane instead. The Holy Lord's aura abruptly proliferated outward as he let loose a rumbling roar, and a streak of red light passed through countless obstructions before crashing viciously against the Passageway seal that was formed by countless golden runes. Boom. The 9 blood gods shuddered violently in unison, and the 3 weakest blood god each threw up a mouthful of blood. Blood 1's expression changed slightly, and he pointed his right index finger forward, upon which 3 heartless swords shot forth like lightning before hovering over the heads of Blood 7, Blood 8, and Blood 9, helping them fortify the seal below them. At this moment, Blood 9 was considering himself to be very fortunate. Due to his loss to Tang Wulin, he had been training his backside off during the past month, and as a result, he had improved significantly. Even his soul power had progressed by 1 rank, and that made it slightly less strenuous for him to guard this seal. If his past self from a month ago were in this situation, then it wouldn't be just a simple matter of throwing up a mouthful of blood for him. The cracks in the seal were just beginning to mend, yet that violent explosion just now smashed them open again. Bursts of dense black energy surged forth before gradually taking shape, forming countless abyssal creatures that were rushing toward the passageway's exit in a frenzy. Among these abyssal creatures, there were at least 5 abyssal emperors. Chapter 1097. The Abyssal Emperor that was situated at the center appeared to be no different from a human woman. Her entire body was clad in a black leather suit, and she had a pair of black wings spread open on her back. Her long black hair fanned out behind her in a roughly circular formation, and her facial features were extremely beautiful, but her eyes were filled with a cold and forbidding look. Those frosty eyes seemed to be able to see through this entire world, and she pointed her right index finger toward the exit, upon which countless abyssal creatures immediately surged forth. Black Sovereign. Tang Wulин's expression immediately changed at the sight of this Abyssal Emperor. The Blood God Legion had been battling the Abyssal Plane for over 6,000 years, so it naturally had a huge wealth of data on these abyssal creatures. During each and every abyssal tide, the Abyssal Emperors were never able to descend upon this world in their actual forms, but their projections would appear on many occasions. Through these projections, the humans had assigned many of the Abyssal Emperors with names. Among the 108 Abyssal Emperors, at least half of them were known to humans. This Black Sovereign was the one who appeared the most frequently among the top 10 Abyssal Emperors. She resided on the 9th Abyssal level and was the sovereign of that level. Only the rulers of the top 10 levels were known as sovereigns, and she possessed a very lofty status in the Abyssal Plane. The Black Sovereign was the ruler of the Black Empress race, and she possessed the powers of a demigod, making her comparable in power to a human limit Douluo in a suit of 4-word battle armor. She was so powerful that even her projection had created a lot of trouble for the human world in the past. The Abyssal Plane was trying to break open the Passageway seals at all costs, and they were sending out the Black Sovereign in her true form from the get-go. It was quite clear that the Abyssal Plane was extremely determined to wipe out the human race once and for all. The Black Sovereign seemed to have understood Tang Wulин's words, and she raised her head to look up at him. Their eyes met, and Tang Wulin was immediately struck by the feeling that his eyes had been stabbed by sharp needles. He had also reached the limit Douluo level, but he had only completed the breakthrough recently, so his powers were still slightly inferior to the likes of Blood 1 and this Black Sovereign. To think that the Abyssal Plane was even capable of sending the Black Sovereign's true body into this world. If other sovereign-level Abyssal Emperors were to emerge as well, then there really would be no hope. Thankfully, following the arrival of this vast horde of abyssal creatures, the abyssal energy that was supporting the cracks on the seal clearly abated somewhat, and the cracks were sealed to a great extent under the effect of the Blood God Array. It was quite clear that they wouldn't be able to send any other powerful beings of the Black Sovereign's caliber to this world in a short time. The 5 Abyssal Emperors didn't immediately attack. Instead, they hovered deep within the passageway with the Black Sovereign at the center of the group, casting their eyes out toward the exit. Countless abyssal creatures were flooding outward in a frenzy, and the defensive line was having some trouble keeping them at bay. Thankfully, under the combined powers of the 9 blood gods, the passageway seal had been temporarily stabilized. Otherwise, if even more abyssal emperors were to emerge, then this would truly become a catastrophic disaster. The sounds of weapons being fired immediately increased in frequency, and the interior of the entire abyssal passageway had already become a violent sea of energy. All of the slain abyssal creatures were reduced to streams of viscous abyssal energy that surged toward the seal, while the living abyssal creatures continued to charge ahead without any regard for their own safety. It was undoubtedly the case that human soul technology had constantly been advancing during the past 6,000 years. 6,000 years ago, the human race only had 9th grade soul missiles, yet now, there were already 12th grade soul missiles that were capable of destroying even almighty entities such as Shrek Academy. Following the passage of these 6,000 years, human technology had already become far more advanced than in the past. The Blood God Legion wasn't officially a part of the federal military, but no matter what was going on behind the scenes in the federal parliament, they didn't dare to cut back even in the slightest on their support of the Blood God Legion. The invasion of the abyssal creatures 6,000 years ago was regarded as top secret information in the federal parliament, and maintaining the power of the Blood God Legion was also one of the highest priorities of the federal government. As such, throughout these 6,000 years, the Blood God Legion had constantly received the newest technology from the Federation, regardless of whether it was defensive equipment or weapons. Even some weapons that were still in their experimental phases had been sent here, and they were improved upon based on their performances during battles against the abyssal creatures. With the current weaponry and equipment available to the human race, even the abyssal emperors weren't worthy of fear. Throughout these past 6,000 years, it had always been the unkillable nature of these abyssal creatures that was the most difficult thing to deal with. This was why Blood 1 was so ecstatic after witnessing the ability of Tang Wulin's golden dragon spear to devour abyssal energy. Of course, in order to allow Tang Wulin to truly make a decisive impact on this millennial-long conflict, the Blood God Legion had to be able to keep the abyssal plane at bay first. Otherwise, if they were allowed to invade the Douluo continent, then the entire Douluo star would face imminent destruction. After all, humans couldn't just resurrect themselves like abyssal creatures could. As such, the Blood God Legion had to defend the abyssal passageway no matter what. Tang Wulin currently had an extremely grave look on his face. Even though he had been battling abyssal creatures for over 60 years, he was still feeling very tense and nervous in the face of such a fierce abyssal tide. He did indeed possess a vast wealth of experience when it came to battling abyssal creatures, but that was only limited to a certain scope. It had been countless years since any abyssal emperors had appeared in the human world in their true forms, and as the Legion commander, he was the psychological pillar of the entire Legion, so he couldn't venture into the abyssal plane to experience the powers of the abyssal emperors for himself. As such, in this area, Blood 1 was far more experienced than him. The deaths of the 6-clawed demon emperor and the ant emperor had instilled them with a lot of confidence, but these 5 abyssal emperors were not beings that could be kept at bay by the weapons that were currently being used. They would only be able to ward off these fearsome beings if they were to unleash weapons with more destructive power. However, the issue was that he didn't know just how powerful the Black Sovereign was. She was the sovereign of the 9th abyssal level and the ruler of the Black Empress race, so she had to be an extremely fearsome being. In the branch passageways, it was considered to be a major crisis even for a Black Empress to appear, let alone the Black Sovereign herself. Among the races of the abyssal plane, the Black Empress race had a very small population, but their individual combat prowess was extremely formidable. In terms of overall powers, they were at least able to rank among the top 5 races of the entire Abyssal Plain. During his younger days, Tang Wulin had fought a Black Empress before, and he could still remember just how close he had come to being killed in that battle. Black Empresses were already such formidable beings, one could only imagine just how powerful the Black Sovereign was. Explosions rang out in rapid succession as the frequency of weapon fire increased even further. The soldiers of the Blood God Legion were displaying an extremely high level of composure, managing to remain completely calm and collected even in the face of such a ferocious assault. They were constantly swapping out energy units from the weapons, as they had practiced during training drills countless times in the past, and some of the backup weapons were already in use. Prepare the corrosion bomb. Tang Wulin issued one order after another with an extremely grim look on his face. A massive cylindrical soul weapon with a diameter over 30 meters slowly emerged from the ground not far away from the exit of the passageway. This cylindrical barrel was entirely dark green in color with the image of a black skull on its surface. One could sense just how fearsome this weapon was just by looking at it. The barrel aimed itself toward the abyssal passageway in a diagonal manner, and faint energy fluctuations were emanating from within it. At this point, countless abyssal creatures were still charging forward with no regard for their own lives, and they were getting closer and closer to the defensive line. Launch the corrosion bomb. Following an order from Tang Wulin, a ball of dark green light appeared within the massive green barrel. Immediately thereafter, the dark green ball of light was launched through the air, flying in a graceful parabolic trajectory and hurtling directly toward the very center of the abyssal passageway. The offensive output from the defensive line at the exit of the abyssal passageway eased slightly, and the abyssal creatures down below immediately took advantage of this opportunity to gain more ground. Right at this moment, the dark green ball that had a diameter of close to 30 meters landed among them. Chapter 1098. The ball of light struck the abyssal creatures in an unavoidable manner, and a peculiar scene ensued. All of the abyssal creatures that came into contact with the ball of light seemed to have been glued to it and were unable to struggle free. They then began to slowly melt away, and what was even more peculiar was that there seemed to be some kind of suction force emanating from the ball of light. As a result of this suction force, the abyssal energy being released by the abyssal creatures that had melted away was only able to slowly seep away into the abyssal passageway. Humans had been researching abyssal creatures for so many years, so they had naturally managed to develop some weapons to target them. Corrosion bombs were one of the secret weapons that had been created specifically to target these abyssal creatures. Some special circuits were applied to these bombs, and not only did they cover a large area and cause all of the abyssal creatures that came into contact with them to melt away, they also had a very strong adherence effect to abyssal energy. As such, the abyssal energy being released by deceased abyssal creatures was unable to escape back into the abyssal plane right away. Even though this was still only a band-aid fix, these weapons were quite effective in the face of these large-scale abyssal tides. The corrosion bomb tumbled down into the depth of the abyssal passageway with countless abyssal creatures adhered to it, and Tang Wulin issued a calm order. Detonate. A resounding boom rang out, and a massive green ball of light almost instantly exploded within the depths of the abyssal passageway. Light radiated in all directions, and large swathes of green liquid spread outward before striking a vast number of abyssal creatures. The green liquid immediately began to erode the bodies of these abyssal creatures while adhering to their abyssal energy. In the face of this attack, the power hierarchy of the abyssal creatures was revealed. The normal abyssal creatures quickly perished after coming into contact with the corrosion bomb, but some of the more powerful abyssal creatures had countermeasures against this. There were 12 Black Empresses who had accompanied the Black Sovereign into this world. These Black Empresses were clearly smaller than the Black Sovereign, and there was black mist permeating around their bodies. There were currently 6 Black Empresses protecting the Black Sovereign, while the other 6 had already risen up into the air. The dense black mist around their bodies surged upward, and it fluctuated violently after coming into contact with the corrosive liquid that had erupted from the corrosion bomb. Their intervention prevented the corrosive liquid from killing even more abyssal creatures, but even so, the momentum of these abyssal creatures had been abruptly halted. The 6 Black Empresses continued to rise up into the air. As the most powerful abyssal creatures on this battlefield aside from the 5 Abyssal Emperors, they were finally joining the battle. Meanwhile, the 5 Abyssal Emperors continued to remain on the spot while silently observing the scenes unfolding before them. As soon as the 6 Black Empresses began their ascent, all of the other abyssal creatures instantly gathered around them. There was dense black mist being released from the bodies of all 6 Black Empresses, and the mist seemed to be comprised of substantial abyssal energy that was as viscous as treacle. Soul missiles that struck this black mist weren't even able to detonate, and soul lasers also simply vanished into the mist like sandcastles being swallowed by the rising tide. Tang Wulin looked on with a grave expression. He knew that this was the demonic engulfment mist that the Black Empress race was vastly renowned for. This was an ultra-powerful ability that could engulf all objects and energy and convert them into energy for the user to a certain extent. It was the perfect fusion of attack and defense. This was the innate ability of the Black Empress race, and it could even be said that all of their abilities stemmed from this demonic engulfment mist as a foundation. As the demonic engulfment mist rose up into the air, most of the oncoming attacks were instantly kept at bay. The 6 Black Empresses each possessed powers close to that of a normal titled Douluo. Of course, the titled Douluos being referred to here were ones that weren't wearing any battle armor. They provided a brilliant canopy for the vast hordes of abyssal creatures behind them, and they were extremely fast, able to exceed even the speed of sound in short explosive bursts. Tang Wulin took a deep breath. The only way to take care of demonic engulfment mist was to overwhelm it with energy. Only by releasing an energy attack that exceeded the engulfment limit of the demonic engulfment mist could it be dispelled in one fell swoop before it could devour the energy. A massive amount of energy would undoubtedly have to be expended to accomplish this, but he had no choice. Right at this moment, Tang Wulin's heart stirred, and something seemed to have suddenly surfaced in his mind. Immediately thereafter, light flashed from the mirror behind him, and a figure appeared by his side. A pair of massive golden dragon wings were spread open, and powerful blood essence fluctuations surged through the air. The blood essence fluctuations were so immensely powerful that in the instant they appeared, even Tang Wulin's own blood essence was influenced. Even the sky above had been tinged a reddish golden hue by the immense blood essence fluctuations being released. It was undoubtedly the case that the one who had just emerged from his mirror domain was none other than Tang Wulin. At this moment, Tang Wulin's eyes had completely turned into a reddish golden color, and his aura was fluctuating in an extremely unstable manner. Arcs of golden lightning were constantly flashing around him, and even his dragon moon battle armor had undergone some changes. A layer of reddish golden mist had appeared over the golden scaled surface of the suit of battle armor, and it was giving Tang Wulin an air of surrealism. This mist was constantly expanding and contracting as if in accordance with his heartbeat, and during this process, Tang Wulin's blood essence fluctuations were also surging forth relentlessly. Arg! Tang Wulin suddenly threw his head back and let loose an almighty roar, as if something had become too much for him to bear, and his golden dragon spear instantly appeared in his right hand. Immediately thereafter, his body shot forth directly toward the abyssal passageway as a reddish golden streak of light. Tang Wulin, what the hell are you doing? Tang Wulin was given a massive fright. This kid was the future hope of the Blood God Legion. He couldn't be allowed to die here. Thankfully, Tang Wulin didn't venture deep into the passageway. Instead, he abruptly thrust his golden dragon spear forward, and a thunderous dragon's roar immediately erupted as a gigantic golden dragon shot forth from the front tip of his spear. The dragon flew through the air in a ferocious manner before crashing into the oncoming demonic engulfment mist. The demonic engulfment mist was already less than a kilometer away from the exit at this point, and the abyssal creatures being concealed within the mist were just about to emerge and charge toward the exit. However, right at this moment, the golden dragon released by Tang Wulin's golden dragon spear arrived. This golden dragon roared with unprecedented power, and its massive tail was still connected to Tang Wulin's golden dragon spear. This golden dragon was over 500 meters in length, and as it spread its colossal wings, it filled up virtually the entire passageway in an instant. Tang Wulin had just devoured the life force energy of both the six-clawed demon emperor and the ant emperor. The seed of life had devoured most of his energy, but it mainly devoured the planar seeds within the bodies of these 2 abyssal emperors. After all, the planar laws and life essence contained within those planar seeds was what it required the most. As the host of the seed of life, Tang Wulin had already been reciprocated by it to an extremely enormous extent, and after devouring the life force energy of the 2 abyssal monarchs as well, he felt as if his entire body were about to explode, and he was in excruciating pain. He couldn't just absorb all of the energy that he devoured. Both his dragon core and soul core were already absorbing energy with all their might, but he had bitten off far more than he could chew. When the 2 major energy cores reached a temporary state of saturation, Tang Wulin felt as if he had become an inflated balloon. He appeared to be completely normal from the outside, but in reality, he truly felt as if he were about to explode. Thankfully, the massive influx of life energy had secured the golden dragon king seals within his body. Otherwise, if his 11th seal were to break at at a time like this, then he would be well and truly screwed. As such, what he needed now was to vent and release all of the extra energy that he couldn't absorb. Only then would he be able to recover from his current state, where he was a walking ticking time bomb. Thus, the 500-meter-long golden dragon emerged. Even if he were to reach the tidal Douluo level in the future, he may not be able to unleash such a powerful spear strike, but he was able to do so now. Tang Wulin's soul power was already at rank 69, and in conjunction with the enhancements he received from his golden dragon king blood essence power and 2-word battle armor, his powers were already comparable to those of a tidal Douluo who wasn't wearing any battle armor. However, this spear strike that he had just unleashed had far exceeded the capabilities of a tidal Douluo, and even those of a hyper Douluo. To put in simpler terms, he was using the life force energy of the 6-clawed demon emperor and the Ant Emperor to unleash this attack, and one could only imagine just how devastatingly powerful it was. Before the abyssal creatures down below had even come into contact with the gigantic golden dragon, their bodies took on a reddish golden hue, following which they quickly evaporated into abyssal energy. However, what was very peculiar was that this abyssal energy wasn't allowed to escape. Instead, it was devoured by the massive golden dragon, thereby further enhancing its powers. It was as if the golden dragon were an extension of Tang Wulin's golden dragon spear. Chapter 1099. No abyssal creatures could pierce through the terrifying blood essence fluctuations being released by the golden dragon, and its aura was so devastatingly fearsome that even the 5 abyssal emperors' expression changed at the sight of it. Boom! The giant golden dragon crashed headfirst into the demonic engulfment mist being released by the black empresses, and golden and black light virtually instantly intertwined with one another in midair. A terrifying string of explosions rang out, and the entire abyssal passageway was tremoring violently. The golden and black colors only grappled with one another for a very short time before the black mist abruptly exploded and dissipated, revealing the 6 black empresses, who were clearly a little dumbstruck. They were instantly devoured by the ferocious golden dragon, and they didn't even get a chance to utter a single sound before they were vaporized by the golden dragon, then became a part of it. After devouring the 6 black empresses, the golden dragon abruptly elongated to around a kilometer in length, and there was a strand of golden light connecting it to the golden dragon sphere. The golden dragon continued to charge into the depths of the abyss, and right at this moment, the black sovereign finally sprang into action. Her body flickered momentarily, and in the next instant, she appeared right in front of the golden dragon. Bright reddish golden light erupted from the golden dragon's body, illuminating the black sovereign before it. The black sovereign wore a frosty look on her face, and her long black hair suddenly extended even further. It appeared as if a massive black hole had emerged behind her, and she was the core of this black hole. Part of the light within the entire abyssal passageway, including the light emanating from the giant golden dragon, was instantly devoured by this black hole. The gigantic golden dragon shrank by about a third before crashing violently into the black hole. The black hole was immeasurably deep and completely devoid of light, and the giant golden dragon vanished into it in an instant. However, in the next instant, a powerful tremor ran through the interior of the abyssal passageway, and a burst of reddish golden mist surged out of the black hole, following which the entire abyssal passageway began to vibrate violently. Vast hordes of abyssal creatures were destroyed in the face of these violent vibrations, and some of them disintegrated into abyssal energy that was drawn back into the abyssal plane, while the rest surged toward Tang Wulin before becoming a part of his body. The reddish golden color reappeared in Tang Wulin's eyes, and he pointed his golden dragon spear forward. Waves of reddish golden light were radiating from his body, and he was exuding an aura of invincibility. The black hole contracted, and the black sovereign was revealed once again. She raised her head to look up at Tang Wulin, and she spoke in a voice that was very pleasing to the ear, yet extremely cold and forbidding at the same time. "It's you." Her voice was clearly audible to all of the Blood God Legion soldiers present, and Blood One's pupils immediately contracted as he sat atop his round platform. He wasn't surprised in the slightest that the Black Sovereign was capable of human speech. He was more concerned that the Black Sovereign had identified Tang Wulin as the one who had devoured those 2 abyssal emperors. The 108 abyssal levels formed a complete abyss, a complete plane. It didn't appear to be a big deal that 2 of the 108 abyssal levels had collapsed, but in reality, the core of the entire abyssal plane had been shaken by this ordeal. If they could continue to destroy more abyssal levels, even if they couldn't annihilate the entire abyssal plane, they would at least be able to scare the abyssal plane into actively cutting off the passageway, thereby completely ridding the human race of this major threat. It was quite clear that the Black Sovereign had discovered this, and they were undoubtedly going to try and kill Tang Wulin at all costs in order to eradicate this lethal threat to the abyssal plane. Blood One was beginning to regret his decision to expose Tang Wulin so early. Of course, this was also due to the fact that the abyssal tide had arrived far too abruptly and far earlier than anyone had anticipated. Otherwise, he would have definitely waited until Tang Wulin was more powerful before setting his plan into motion. If Tang Wulin could reach his power level, then perhaps he would truly be able to eradicate the threat of the abyssal plane with his golden dragon spear's energy-devouring ability. Wan Yun. Blood One yelled, and Jiang Wanyin immediately responded, silently appearing behind Tang Wulin to protect him from any potential threats. Seeing as Tang Wulin had already been exposed, the only thing that they could do was protect him at all costs. The Black Sovereign sprang into action. Her body swayed, and she suddenly appeared within 100 meters from Tang Wulin. The closer she came, the clearer her exquisitely beautiful features became to Tang Wulin. Among all of the women whom Tang Wulin had ever seen, only Gu Yuna was slightly more beautiful than her. This Black Sovereign's human imitation ability truly was very powerful. The Black Sovereign's frosty eyes were like a pair of black holes that were filled with violence and slaughter. She appraised Tang Wulin with an intense gaze before reaching out with both hands at once and making a grabbing motion in Tang Wulin's direction. 2 gigantic claws that were constructed from black mist instantly tore through space, and at the same time, the black hole behind her suddenly began to rotate. A massive black hole silently appeared behind Tang Wulin, separating him from Jiang Wanyin. This was the first time that Jiang Wanyin had faced this Black Sovereign, and he was quite alarmed by this sudden development. Brilliant light erupted from the mirror behind him as he attacked the black vortex without any reservation, but at this point, the Black Sovereign's giant claws had already enveloped Tang Wulin's body. Tang Wulin harumphed coldly, and countless spear projections abruptly erupted from his golden dragon spear. Each and every spear projection was like a scorching bolt of lightning that clashed with the oncoming black light without displaying any signs of weakness. The 2 types of energy collided, and the demonic engulfment mist was attempting to devour Tang Wulin's spear projections with its powerful corrosive and engulfment abilities. However, it was also at this point that Tang Wulin's blood essence fluctuations were elevated to their very peak. The more blood essence power he expended, the less strain there was on his body, so he was naturally pouring his blood essence power into his attacks without any reservation. Thus, streaks of reddish golden light surged through the air with unstoppable force before abruptly converging inward to form a substantial reddish golden spear that was over 100 meters long. The massive spear pierced through the pair of black claws before reaching the Black Sovereign, and she made no effort to evade as she gave a cold harumph. Her right hand shot forth like lightning to grab onto the tip of the spear, and its momentum was immediately stopped cold. A brief impasse ensued between the 2, and Tang Wulin felt as if he were facing a massive black hole rather than a humanoid being. A burst of enormous suction force erupted from his fury of the masses in a frenzy, and it felt as if it were going to instantly exhaust all of his energy. However, it was also right at this moment that a series of strange symbols appeared on the surface of his golden dragon spear. None of these symbols existed on the Douluo continent, and they seemed to resemble dragons, but at the same time, they were also completely different from dragons in appearance. The layers of symbols stacked on top of one another, and his golden dragon spear abruptly elongated to become the same size as his fury of the masses. The feeling of having his energy sucked away immediately disappeared, and at the same time, the Black Sovereign's expression changed slightly, and she abruptly withdrew her right hand as if she had just touched something hot. Right at this moment, an extremely enormous burst of energy surged violently into Tang Wulin's body, and he let loose an involuntary muffled groan as trails of blood began to flow out of all of his orifices. The golden dragon spear had forcibly devoured a wisp of the Black Sovereign's energy from the place where her hand had made contact with the tip of the spear. The Black Sovereign was glaring at Tang Wulin with fury in her eyes, and she was radiating palpable killing intent. Her right hand clenched into a fist, and she launched it through the air. The interior of the entire abyssal passageway abruptly congealed, and it was as if her fist had expanded to the same diameter as the abyssal passageway. After devouring a wisp of the Black Sovereign's energy, Tang Wulin's body had returned to that extremely swollen and inflated state, but there was no way for him to immediately convert such an enormous amount of energy into an attack. Chapter 1100. At the end of the day, he and the Black Sovereign simply weren't beings of the same level. At this point in time, there was no way for him to evade, and the Black Sovereign's punch was definitely a limit Douluo level attack, so there was no way that he could withstand it. All of a sudden, the darkness behind Tang Wulin dissipated, and a mirror appeared high above his head. At the same time, a loud cry rang out around him. Myriad lords of heaven and earth, spirit of Douluo, circle of blood gods, seal. The voice belonged to the Blood One. As soon as his incantations rang out, nine-colored light erupted from the exit of the passageway. A massive rune descended from up above, hurtling toward the passageway down below. At the same time, a thin layer of nine-colored light appeared on all of the walls surrounding the passageway. The light swirled, and the black light emanating from the Black Sovereign's fist instantly subsided significantly. This wasn't Blood One's power. Instead, this was planar power from the entire Douluo continent. To the Douluo continent, abyssal creatures were invaders from an alternate plane, so the continent naturally rejected them. Otherwise, with the overall power of the 108 abyssal levels, they would have taken over Douluo continent when they had first invaded over 6,000 years ago. At the time, this seal had only been created after drawing upon the planar power of the Douluo continent. At this moment, Blood One was using the Blood God array to draw upon planar power in order to oppose the Black Sovereign. At the same time, this power was also descending upon the abyssal passageway, debilitating all of the powerful abyssal creatures that had emerged in this world. If it weren't for the existence of the Blood God array, the human race wouldn't have been able to keep the abyssal plane at bay for over 6,000 years. A streak of scintillating light flashed over Tang Wulin's head, and the light underwent 3 transformations as it hurtled through the air. It then combined with the spirits of heaven and earth of the Douluo continent plane, instantly completing 9 revolutions before finally striking the Black Sovereign's fist. A powerful energy storm was instantly swept up within the passageway, and Tang Wulin abruptly vanished amid the bright white light. This was the power of Jiang Wanyun's mirror domain. He was able to draw Tang Wulin back into his domain, then combine his own power with that of the Blood God array to oppose the Black Sovereign. However, right at this moment, the Black Sovereign displayed her power as an abyssal sovereign. In the face of the fearsome energy storm, she remained hovering in midair in a completely stationary and statuesque manner. Regardless of how fierce the energy storm became, she didn't retreat so much as a single step, and her eyes were shimmering like a pair of black gemstones. She waved her hands gently before her in a rhythmic manner, and a series of black threads spiraled out of her fingertips before surging toward Jiang Wanyun. However, Jiang Wanyun had no intention of engaging in a direct clash with her. He had already become a limit Douluo, and with his suit of 4-word battle armor, even if he couldn't defeat the Black Sovereign, he would at least be able to keep her at bay. However, there was currently no need for him to do that. There were only 2 limit Douluos in the Blood God Legion, with the other one obviously being Blood One, and they were the true pillars of the entire legion. In order to combat these powerful abyssal emperors, it was important to draw upon the planar power of the entire Douluo continent rather than rely solely on their own powers. Otherwise, they would have no chance at all against the collective power of the abyssal plane. This was why Blood One had immediately decided to activate the Blood God array with the other 8 Blood Gods rather than participate directly in the battle. As long as the Blood God array remained stable, they would be able to make use of their home plane advantage. Even a demigod level being like the Black Sovereign was going to be restricted by the Douluo continent plane, thereby rendering her unable to unleash her full power. As such, it would become a lot easier to keep her at bay. As for Tang Wulin, he was someone who was truly able to pose a threat to the abyssal emperors, so he was the ultimate trump card of the Blood God Legion and even the entire human race. Even with the Black Sovereign's immense powers, she wouldn't dare to charge into the Blood God array on her own. If she were to be subdued, she would be at risk of being permanently killed by Tang Wulin, which was why Jiang Wanyun had immediately retreated with Tang Wulin. His current top priority was to stabilize the situation. White light flashed, and Jiang Wanyun retreated to outside of the Blood God array rather than continuing to face the Black Sovereign in battle. At the same time, Tang Wulin had also appeared beside him with reddish golden light swirling around his entire body. Everything that had happened just now had taken place in the blink of an eye, but all of the Blood God Legion soldiers had still witnessed the events that had just transpired. What they saw was that Tang Wulin had descended with unstoppable force, instantly destroying 6 Black Empresses before engaging in and surviving a direct clash against the Black Sovereign. His invincible reddish golden figure had been imprinted deep into everyone's hearts. After securing the double crown in the Star Battle Net Interfederation competition, Tang Wulin had already become a hero in the hearts of all of the Legion soldiers, but even so, they didn't really think that Tang Wulin was truly all that powerful. After all, the competition was restricted to those who were below the titled Douluo level and didn't yet possess suits of 3-word battle armor. However, the fearsome combat prowess that Tang Wulin had just displayed and the gargantuan golden dragon that he had unleashed had truly stunned everyone. Following Tang Wulin's reappearance, the reddish golden light around his body was beginning to expand and contract once again. The 6 Black Empresses truly possessed an enormous amount of energy, even though he had released most of the energy that he didn't have time to absorb through his previous attacks. The essential power of the Black Empresses had still fused into his body. His dragon core and soul core were constantly being overloaded, and as a result, the aura that he was exuding was extremely unstable. If a normal soul master had absorbed such an enormous amount of energy, they would have exploded already. However, not only did Tang Wulin possess an immensely powerful physical constitution, what was even more important was that after absorbing the planar seeds of those 2 abyssal emperors, the seed of life was extremely pleased with its host. As such, it was releasing bursts of extremely rich life force energy to protect his body. Even though there was an enormous amount of energy within his body, he didn't have to worry about being harmed by it so long as the seed of life continued to protect him. Every living being possessed their own life essence, and the more powerful one's life essence was, the more potent their life force would be. The energy being converted by the seed of life was constantly bolstering Tang Wulin's life essence, and in a sense, it was elevating him to become a high life form. As a result, his body was able to remain in a stable state and not explode in the face of the tremendous energy it contained. Even so, Tang Wulin still felt as if he had endless power within his own body. His energy was constantly expanding and contracting, and the sphere projection on his golden dragon spear was also constantly fluctuating in length. He wanted nothing more than to rush into the abyss again and fight to his heart's content. He was naturally able to sense the overwhelming power of the Black Sovereign. Even in his current state, he was still no match for a being of her caliber. Even so, the energy that was churning within his body was constantly elevating his battle intent, making him feel as if he could destroy any enemy, no matter how powerful they were. As his life essence was strengthened, his spiritual power was also undergoing a series of constant minute changes. He sensed the transitions of the 9 types of spiritual energy within the Blood God array, and he felt as if he were the ruler of heaven and earth. Get back, Wanyun. Blood One's voice suddenly sounded. Jiang Wanyun faltered slightly before turning toward him. At this point, all of the abyssal creatures had been impacted by the devastating clashes that had just taken place, and they had temporarily paused in their advance. However, there were still abyssal creatures constantly pouring out of the cracks on the seal. The abyssal plane had used some kind of power to oppose the Blood God array, preventing it from sealing those cracks. Blood One said in a serious voice, "The array will protect Wulin. At a time like this, only he can truly lead us to force back these abyssal creatures. Listen up, Wulin. From now on, we're going to help you become the core of the Blood God array. You don't have to worry about defending yourself. Just do everything in your power to kill your enemy. Understood? If the energy is too much for you to absorb, then don't latch onto it. Just transfer it all to that seed of yours." Blood One had already sensed that Tang Wulin was currently in quite a special state. Furthermore, he had also made some evaluation on what that seed was, and that was why he had issued these instructions. At this moment, Tang Wulin was like a massive balloon that was filled with violent energy. He didn't even dare to open his mouth to respond as he was afraid that doing so would allow the energy to escape and blow his own body away. Thus, he merely nodded in response. It was not that he was unwilling to transmit the energy within his own body to the seed of life. Instead, the problem was that the seed of life was very picky and was very reluctant to accept any energy aside from the energy contained within planar seeds. Circle of Blood Gods, 9 Spirit Protection, Initiate. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.